There's a conversation that happens in the newsletter that says the producers meeting referred to a few weeks back here regarded a feeling from the older wrestlers that Raw's declining numbers were due to too many pre-taped scripted promos and less in-ring. Of course, wrestlers are going to come up with that. I don't think that's the answer. Although personally, I think both companies overdo the scripted backstage promos. Getting ratings turned around is very difficult in the modern environment and won't happen without the creation of one or two new hot stars who are headliners challenging for the main title. Adding more wrestling and less talking, if it builds angles stronger, may lead to slight buy rate increases, and it's not going to turn around ratings. As far as the idea of doing it, to me, I think shows should be different each week and less predictable. I think it shouldn't be so cookie cutter of every match is 2 to 5 minutes, except where main eventers are involved. I mean, this ratio, if you will, of how much gaga, we'll call it, and how much in ring wrestling, how much time spent wrestling is a big discussion when you're trying to put together a show. Is there a best practice, or is it all just feel for each individual show?
It's story. It's what are your stories that you're telling and how best to tell those stories. The ideal situation is to have a combination of both. But everything in the ring should have a story based around it. And if you're going to, just put matches on for matches' sake, guys, that ain't going to work. And it is, it's been proven time and time again. And I will go back to, even when I was TNA and I used to listen to the Spike guys go, oh my God, it used to come into the truck with a stopwatch if we started the show with a promo. And they go, 21 minutes and we haven't had any action. Ratings would come in, and those 21 minutes would be the highest rated of the entire show. So it's a mix. Look, if it's good backstage stuff and it's good talk, then it's going to equal good ratings. If it's good action mixed in with that, it's going to equal good ratings. And if it's not as compelling and the audience doesn't want to stay, then the ratings aren't going to be as good. There's no silver bullet. There's no, this is how you do it one way. It's a combination. It's a happy medium and a happy mix to have the right amount in every single show, depending upon the stories you're telling, is going to depend on what you're telling and how you're telling them.
What do you make of the comment that what we need to turn ratings up, to get ratings to tick up, is to make a new star or two? I know wrestling fans are always looking for new. That's something that JR is always talking about, that wrestling fans love new. They want new. Do you think that, the whole, hey, we need another star? I mean, is that, I mean, I know you're always focused on making stars, but how important is that to get to the next level, if that makes sense?
It's constant. That's a constant in this business. You are constantly in need of creating new stars. And if you don't, it just you cannibalize yourself and nothing's going to work. So yes, I mean, without a doubt, you have to constantly reinvent. You have to constantly be building from underneath up top to create new superstars and new stars underneath as well. That's just a constant. That's called business. You have to be able to reinvent and continue to grow. Otherwise you die.
Let's take a look at where we are with the main event scene. It's written here that every SmackDown World Title match on pay-per-view since 2006 has either had Batista, Edge, or Undertaker in it. And since 2002, the creation of that second world title, the quote-unquote big gold belt, every Raw title match since 02 at this point has either had Triple H, Cena, or John Orton in it.
John Orton?
John Cena or Randy Orton in it. I mean, that's pretty crazy when you think about it, that the SmackDown title, always about Batista, Edge, or Undertaker. The Raw title, always around Triple H, Cena, and Orton. As a wrestling fan watching during that time, it did feel like John Cena and Randy Orton headlined about 400 pay-per-views in a row against each other. Was that?
That's untrue, but yes, they were the focal point. They were the top stars at the time. They were the focal point. That's where the money was, and that's who was drawing the money and carrying it at the time. And, when you look at, okay, you go back to Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, you can say the same thing during that period of time. You can go back to Hulk Hogan, and it depends on the time. Who are your top stars at the time? If there were only 4 guys in that mix, and again, you also weren't doing pay-per-views every month from the same brand. You would have a Raw pay-per-view, then you would have a SmackDown pay-per-view during this time. So they were separate. So it wasn't like that was every single month. Every single month, it was every other month. And so it's not as, if you compare it to today, where every month it's everybody is involved in it. It wasn't that way at that time. It was every other month, and you had separate pay-per-views. You had a Raw pay-per-view, you had a SmackDown pay-per-view, and then every once in a while we would do the, everybody on it, but it was separate brands and separate brand matches on those shows.
I'm not pretending that I understand wrestling creative. I am just trying to learn, though. Like I've heard people say on some level, you start with, okay, here's our heels and here's our baby faces. Is there, throughout any point in wrestling, we can even go back to Houston, so I'm not asking for the WWE way necessarily, but when you're trying to figure out our top guys, here's our main event guys, it does feel like, for better or worse, based on those stats I just rattled off, there's like 3 top heels and 3 top baby faces. Do you need 1? Do you need 2? Does it need to be 4? I mean, obviously, you want everybody to be as over as they are, or as they can be. But when you're trying to formulate a show and you're trying to thread a story and you're trying to say, okay, we need this many segments with our top guys, on some level, if they became an algebra equation and there weren't names attached and they were just X, Y, and Z, how many of those variables, if you will, do you need?
Well, it's not an algebra question, and it's real people and it's real feeling. And had a discussion with some folks today about AI. AI is great. AI can create a lot of different things, but what it can't create is emotion. And when you are looking at what do you need to draw, you need a star and you need someone that can emotionally connect with the audience, whether that is from a standpoint of the audience loves them and wants to get behind them and help them, or the audience hates them and wants to see them be defeated. And that's emotion. And that is the intangible that makes people get up, get in their car, drive to the arena, pay money to come in and see that event, to see either my guy win or my guy or the other guy get his butt kicked. So it's the emotion. It may be 1, 2. Obviously, you want as many stars as you can possibly get. You want to have, a whole lineup of stars, but you always need at least one that's the attraction. Who is there that one guy that you can put on the marquee and they don't care who they're facing, what it is? I just want to see that one guy. And that's the attraction. So you always need an attraction and you always need strong story. That is what has always been the business from day one. And for it to succeed and for it to prosper, that's what it will continue to need.